It seemed like it happened overnight. America's classrooms completely changed. The image of 1950s-style classrooms, the teacher's desk at the front, rows of desks, and the chalkboard or whiteboard replaced with tablets and laptops. A national health emergency changed everything. Learning became mobile, remote, and virtual. But something else seems to be happening to schools. More dramatic changes. There's a shift in what we teach, how we teach, and what we expect of parents and students. Today on State of Independence, a conversation with a school headmaster, part of a national movement to return to a traditional learning style, a classical education, one that's designed to help students do more than pass tests, but live lives instead in pursuit of truth, goodness, and beauty. Today's program isn't designed to stress out parents who have already enrolled their children at a local school, but give a small window into the world of educational opportunities that are likely coming to a community near you. Classical Christian education. Stay with us. There's always been something of a two-tiered educational system in America. We've known this for a long time. There's the exclusive world of boarding and preparatory schools, a more direct route to elite colleges and universities. These schools typically come with a high price and a more challenging path to admission. Then there's a system of education encompassing a host of private and public schools, many of them excellent, but often tied to new and emerging trends in education. But what if the education once only available to America's leading families was suddenly more accessible? What if a child in the projects could have the same access to learning as a son or a daughter of privilege? And what if that educational opportunity were accompanied by a Christian worldview, one that informs students of their unique design, purpose, and life calling? Covenant Christian Academy in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania is a classical Christian school. But what does that mean? What's different about the classical school experience from all others? And what does it mean for the students and parents who are part of these educational communities? Here's one grandparent's story to begin the conversation.
My grandson Rowan and I arrive here at 7 a.m. every morning to start our day. He's a fourth grade student here and I'm the facilities manager.
Lord, we pray today that you'll keep each student safe and sound.
My wife and I both went to public school, and we sent 3 children through public school. We knew we wanted to do something different for Rowan. They're learning about Michelangelo, and they got to lay under desks and paint as he did the Sistine Chapel ceiling. When they learned about the Middle Ages, they got to dress up like knights, and they made shields and helmets and swords.
Today we're going to be studying coral reefs.
I feel a lot of times that schools educate so that they can test. This isn't just an academic atmosphere, this is a whole person atmosphere, body, mind, and spirit. Every aspect of who you are is nurtured and strengthened in covenant. From the day Rowan started speaking, I knew that he was special. I want him to grow up to be a godly man. I want him to contribute to society. I want him to have a good character, love the Lord, be a light. The school challenges him, and he's thriving on that challenge.
Dr. David Sonju is the head of school or headmaster for Covenant Christian Academy, a school that's ethnically and denominationally diverse, but one that, as you've heard, has high expectations for all its students. David, thank you for coming to Philadelphia. I'm excited to learn about your school and how you found yourself to be the head of a classical Christian school.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I didn't butcher your last name, did I?
No, you got it right. It's a tough one. It's a Norwegian name actually, and you said it well.
Great. So tell us about you. I mean, how did you come to? First of all, you're a Christian.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I was raised in a Christian family, just a godly mom and dad, and kind of always taught to grow up in that way, to love the Lord, and I think I owned that for myself at a certain time, so I have a Christian worldview and background was always important to me as I grew older. And then, but thinking about education itself, that was kind of a longer road to get involved in the classical Christian school.
Right. Did you go straight to like grad school or something after you finished college, with the thought in mind of becoming maybe a teacher or an administrator or a head of school? Yeah,
so it was a bit of a longer road because I started out as a business major in college. Was not thinking about being a teacher, and but then later on, I was involved. I went to seminary, and then I did a doctorate. Through that process, what happened is my own kids started getting to the age of needing an education, and I'm like, well, I've got to be thinking about what their needs are going to be. As I was finishing up my doctorate, I thought maybe I would go into teaching. Kind of going through that process, that was my direction that I was thinking. But then it kind of shifted in the midst of that, and seeing my own daughter was reaching school age, and I became more excited about a younger form of education. Rather than thinking of college students, I was thinking of K through 12 students, and at that time began thinking a lot about or learning more about what I had already learned some about, which was classical Christian education.
Yeah. So, and you wanted that for your kids, I'm guessing.
I did. Yeah. I was like, for my own family, I wanted to be in a place where I knew I could make a difference in what would actually shape my own children. So,
right. So did you start Covenant?
No. So that's a Covenant Christian Academy in Harrisburg. It was started in 1997. So it had been around a good time, and it was 2014 that I came there. So, but I did have a background going further back than that. My mom had helped to start a classical Christian school in Dallas, Texas, where now it's not where I went to school. It was after I graduated from high school. But then I was the youngest in my family, and she wanted to be involved in serving her community. So she was involved in starting this classical Christian school in Dallas that then I got to see as I was growing older. So I had those memories of what that was, and I saw how effective it could be in really shaping young people.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's amazing how our lives change as we become parents. If you're gifted to be a parent, as you and I are, and you start thinking about your kids and what you want for them.
That's right.
And what your hopes and dreams for them are. I mean, every parent, I hope, wishes the best for their kid and wants the best for their kid, and is willing to do what they need to do to make sure their kid especially has a great education. I know my parents did that. Tell me about the students that come to your school. Can any parent, without regard to their financial background, apply to your school?
Oh, sure, yeah. And you mentioned a few things there that are super important to us, that partnership with parents. We're looking to partner with parents that are seeking to raise their children up in their faith in the Lord, and so that we want to help any parent that is committed to that. Like, that's what's important to us. And so we have a lot of financial aid that we're able to offer. We seek to be able to offer as much as we can. So we've got families from all kinds of economic backgrounds who are able to have students at Covenant.
Right, and I'm sure you have to raise a lot of money. You're probably trying to build an endowment, I'm guessing.
Indeed, yeah, we are, and it's an important work. I think more and more Christians are beginning to see that. Like, if we don't educate our children, they're just they're not gonna share the same faith and the same values that we want them to develop into, which is a Christian faith. So, recognizing that importance. Really, I think there's a growing sense of the need to support Christian education for young people.
I was kind of telling them myself in my intro when I was talking about what a classical education used to be in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. When I was a young person, I went to a school where there was the traditional school. There was a desk in the front for the teacher, and then rows of wooden desks where we students sat. And put my books in the desk or under the desk, depending upon what type of desk I had that year. And then at the front of the classroom there was a flag, and every morning before school started we would say the Pledge of Allegiance. And actually we used to also pray. That of course over time became not admissible in public schools. But when I went to public school, before I went to private school, we used to pray. We'd do the Pledge of Allegiance every morning, then we'd pray. Tell our audience about what a classical Christian education is, because they may not know what that means.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a great question, and I think some of the aspects that you're describing there are similar to what we would do now in our school, where we want to have the whole education fit into our Christian faith, and we want our families and our students to really grow up just knowing that they are learners because they are created by God, and they have great dignity and being created in the image of God, and so they're going to have aspects of their school day that are going to remind them of that. So you mentioned being in the classroom. We do a morning assembly in our grammar school. They do say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then prayer is just a big part of our school day, as well as singing. Singing is a big part of what we do, and there's singing. They learn a hymn every week. Throughout the year they learn different hymns that they sing together as students, both just the grammar school, but then also the whole school at different times. So those kinds of things set a context where the students are learning in an environment that is pushing them up toward what is good and beautiful. We want them to think about things that are just worthy of their attention, worthy of their mind, and so in a worldview that the worldview supports the education. It supports them in their journey toward maturity. Well, that's what we're hoping to achieve.
That's wonderful. I know my father, I think I told you before we went on air that my father was the principal of a school, and he was the principal at home too, by the way. I mean, he wanted to be in charge, and he was. Yeah. But in his school, he used to talk to his students. I think every morning he had I guess they had loudspeaker in all the classrooms, and he'd be in his office and he'd get on the loudspeaker, he'd have a microphone, and he would talk into it and talk to all the students in the school at the beginning of every day. Do you have, as headmaster, an opportunity to kind of interact with students and to talk to them? This is a different era now. We have more technology available to us now. But,
sure.
But do you talk to this whole school?
Well, it's funny. I have that same memory from the school I went to early on of coming through, and the speaker and the principal would speak to the whole school. We don't do that. We do have the morning assembly that I described, but I've got really great grammar school dean, and those folks are usually speaking to the students, but we're a small school, and so that's another aspect of it. We're about 250 students, and so great. You really get to know everybody, and you get to know them. This is important. You get to know them through the grades. So I just don't know them as a second grader, or as a fifth grader, or as a ninth grader, but I see them go through that whole journey, and I remember when they were a second grader, and see them mature. And it's not just me, but it's almost all of their teachers, and so that's something that delights all of us. Is when the students become seniors, they do a senior thesis project. It's a really it's a big project. They have to do pretty intense research, and then they present a paper to the school, and they're questioned by board members at this project. But what's also neat is our grammar school teachers love to come and watch them, because they remember when they were in their classes all those years before. Right. And for those students, they know that they are part of a school where they are loved from many different places, and they know as they see their grammar school teachers that those teachers still care about them, even though they're now, high schoolers. So that's a neat thing in the classical school movement. Many of our schools are able to have those real personal connections with students.
And do you have like a college counseling program do your students, for the most part, when they finish, are they headed to college?
Yeah, most are headed to college. It's interesting, in some of the comments you were making earlier, I was thinking the importance of our Christian worldview, that we think God just as that sense of calling, that what God is calling a student to is really important, and there's dignity and there's worth in many different directions. So many of our students will go to college and they'll do well in college, but not all of them will. Some of them will go into different trades. We've had a number of students go into welding or different technical trades, and we're so proud of them. I mean, they're fulfilling God's call. They're following God's call in their life. But to answer your question, yes, most of our students do go, would go to college, and the classical education really does prepare them intellectually to be excellent thinkers, to be just to be ready to pursue any number of different avenues depending on what their gifts are.
Yeah, that's great. It's there's always the challenge of the world. So they go to a Christian school, which is wonderful, but then they have to, school ends and they go back home.
Yeah.
And in their local neighborhood, that's the world. Mm-hmm. And the majority of the world isn't, people may nominally be Christians, but as we know, the majority of the world isn't Christian. So it's wonderful that your children can have that grounding, that center, to be prepared to deal with with a world that's not believing. Do any of your kids go into ministry?
Oh, sure. Yeah. We we're still a fairly young school, so we're just kind of getting our students that are out there and finishing college and into their careers and such. But I know we've had a number of students go into teaching. We've had some go into medicine. We've had, I'm trying to think if we've had anybody. I know I can think of a couple that are involved in youth ministry and things like that. Yeah.
Did your own children choose to go? And I know you've got like a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Did they choose to come to school with Dad?
Yes, they I don't know how much choice they had, to be honest with you, Joe. But they are delightful students in our school, and it's been a joy to watch them grow up. A fun thing I tell you, my first year, my daughter, who I mentioned earlier, was a kindergarten student. Yeah. So she started kindergarten the same time I started as a headmaster, and now she's going into 7th grade. So
wow,
it's pretty fun. It's a nice way to mark the time,
Right. You don't embarrass her or any of that kind of?
I don't know if I would say that. I think there are times that happens, but I think they're happy to be where they are.
Yeah, that's a blessing. That's a blessing. My daughters, when they were teenagers, we laugh about this now because they're grown and married with their own kids. And one of my daughters is an assistant head of school.
Oh yeah.
So she's in the same business that you're in. But we laugh about it now. But I remember when they were like 12 and 13, we used to take them to the mall, and they'd say, "Mom and Dad, drop us off at this entrance, and you all can go into another entrance, but don't come in with us." He says, "And we're going to be with our friends. And if you see us, don't act like you know us, right? Just keep walking if you see us." And we say, "Okay, sure." Yeah. We'd play along with them, and we'd see them walk with their buddies in the mall, and we'd walk. We wouldn't wave. We'd kind of smile to ourselves. Yeah. And now they think back to that, and they laugh and say, "Oh my goodness, what were we thinking?"
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Well, and you hope you get to that place afterwards, like you're describing, where that relationship is stronger and all that. But you go through those middle school years are hard for students, and they're hard for families, and that's something I think that a school like Covenant is, I think, able to partner well with families, because wherever you are, those are hard years. You're learning so much about yourself, and you're growing and you're changing, and so we want our students to. We want to have the kind of relationships with our students and with our parents. We're encouraging that so that they really just enjoy being with one another, and that's something that we experience at Covenant. Like a lot of events, school events, you'll have students of all ages that are there, right? So it's not just the certain age not hanging out with younger kids or anything like that. There's a lot of it's just a really neat community, and I think that happens because of the worldview and just the intentionality of building those relationships across the ages.
I love what you're saying about the families being a partner with you in the education of their children, and I love the sense of nurture that you provide for kids. I loved in the video the kids painting on their backs so they could sense what Michelangelo felt when he painted the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
And the kids wearing the little knights in armor outfits so they could really have a sense of what it must have been like. To you, what you've got so many wonderful sides to your school, but to you, what really stands out as making Covenant a special place?
Oh man, that's There's so many different ways to answer that question. I mean, I think the love of our teachers for their students really comes through. But I think it's the whole thing. That's what's special. What I like about Covenant is it doesn't just focus on one small thing apart from the whole, but it's trying to create a whole environment where a child is educated in a way that really reflects the truth about them, the truth about who God is, the truth about who God has made them to be. And so they're able to grow and to be educated in a sense of security, in a sense of strength, because they know, that they're being reinforced by a Christian worldview. So.
Yeah, that's really a wonderful and special thing. If a parent wanted to apply to Covenant, and this is a day school, it's not a boarding school.
Not a boarding
right?
school,
right.
yeah.
So you should probably live in the greater Harrisburg area if you would want to send your kid. But if they wanted to send their kid to your school, how would they do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's the Harrisburg, greater Harrisburg area. We have people that come from 30 minutes away in any direction. We've got a great admissions team, and so you would just reach out to our admissions director, and you could go to our website, discovercovenant.com, and there's instructions there on how to reach out to us to take a tour and to really experience the school.
Should I be discouraged if I'm a parent and I know I don't have the money to pay for a Covenant education? Should I say, well, I would love to meet you, David, and I'd love to meet your team, but I know I don't have the money to do that.
Yeah,
Should that person still feel free to come, or?
Yeah, we would definitely want you to apply. Like I said, we're looking for Christian families that are really desiring an excellent Christian education for their children, and we've seen the Lord provide for many people to be able to attend.
And what if somebody isn't themselves a believer, but they would want what your school offers for their child? Are they welcome to come too? I mean,
yeah, that's a difficult. There are kind of two models in Christian education. There's one called a covenant model, and then there's one more of a missional or evangelistic model. And covenant is, as you might guess from the name, is formed on the covenant model, where we really think those partnerships with the Christian parents is essential to what we're trying to accomplish. And so for us, we need to have to know that we'll be able to partner with a Christian family that is going to support what we're trying to do.
Right. For you as head of school, in what ways have you found that you've had to lean on God, on your faith as a Christian person?
Well, that's in so many ways. I tell you, this school exists. It's just so clear. It's not because of how clever we are. It's not because of the great, the curriculum. I mean, we do like what we teach. We do try to do things well. But goodness, we're so aware that God needs to do a good work because of the kind of work it is of educating young men and women and helping them to grow to maturity, where they will no longer be children, as Ephesians says, but that they will grow up into the full stature of Christ. So we know that that's a work beyond us. So for me personally, needing to depend on the Lord and just decisions and in relationships, and then certainly this last year that we all experienced. Yeah. I mean, what
did you do this last
threw
year?
Us all right.
Yeah. Were you virtual some of the year, or what did you do?
We were so thankful. We thought it was so important to be part of we think this education happens so much better if you are together, if you are in person. So we were together for the whole year. We had to send like a sixth grade class had to take a week quarantine on 2 different occasions. But other than that, we were largely just in person together, and that made a huge difference.
Wow. That's a real blessing that you all were able to do that and to do it without any kind of incident, which is
itself, a testament to God's grace, because it surely could have been different, and there could have been many more cases. There could have been reasons that we had to go remote, and I know many schools had to, but we were really thankful that we were able to meet together.
Yeah. Is there anything that you're reading as we close that you would encourage other people to read? Is there anything recently that you may have read, or anything you may have seen or heard on a podcast that really caught your attention, and you said, you know what, this was really a good book or a good podcast or a good piece or a good show?
That's a great question. I'm laughing because I'm reading a biography on Stalin right now.
Joseph Stalin.
I don't know that would be my recommendation to people, even though it's a fantastic biography. But no, I'm reading a bunch of great books. There's one that's been helpful on kind of philosophy of kind of what's going on right now called what's it called? Cynical Theories by Pluckrose and Lindsay. That's a book I would recommend for if you're just like wondering what's going on in our current world with a lot of the the attention on like transgender things and on critical race theory and these different directions. That's a book I'd recommend.
Outstanding. Yeah. Well, our thanks to David Sonju for inviting us into his work and mission at Covenant Christian Academy in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's clear that he has a passion for education, but a heart for sharing the good news of the gospel. We'll be right back with our producer, Jeff Coleman.
You're watching Joe Watkins' State of Independence on Lighthouse TV. Positively different. Share your comments about today's program in the comment box at joewatkins.org.
So now let's talk to our great producer, Jeff Coleman.
Well, I hope that was an encouraging show and not a despairing show for parents who have maybe are at the end of their child's experience in schools and are looking back, man, I wish I would have had that. Many parents I know when they experience a school like Covenant say they wish they had that experience for themselves.
Yeah.
And but I think the challenge, as you have spoken many times, is to make sure that this opportunity to have this kind of a school is available to more people and not just kind of zip code divided schools that say if you live on this side of the river, you have access. If you're on that side, too bad.
Right, yeah. Well, he said it was open to everybody, which I loved. And I love the fact that the school lifts up everybody. So, not everybody, the society seems to give extra weight to people who've gone to college. And the reality is that God has made us all, and there are all these gifted people that are headed to trade school that have trades, and they ought to be lifted up because they are a blessing. And so this school does that. This school says, you know what, let's find out where God would have you. And some kids head off to college, and some kids head to a trade school to find their profession. And I think that's wonderful, and everybody's lifted up. There's no stigma put on. Oh, you're not going to college. You're loved and valued because you're God's creation, and God has gifted you to do this or that.
I think it takes parents too with a vision for their child's education that says, look, we're not just going to choose a school or a school district. We're not going to move to a neighborhood just because it has an elite brand or a name attached. We're willing to try something different.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, very exciting, very exciting. Well, if you're a parent or grandparent, classical Christian schools may not have been on your radar. I hope they are now. It's important to know that parents have options. Special thanks to Dr. David Sonju for being our guest today. And if you found this program interesting or encouraging, or maybe it raised more questions, feel free to send me a message directly in the comment box at joewatkins.org. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll personally respond. Remember, the mission of this program is to encourage you to love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. I hope in some way, maybe some small way, we achieve that mission today. From America's first capital, Philadelphia, I'm Joe Watkins. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Great school.
Awesome school.
Yeah.
They brought back some memories for you.
It sure did. Middlesex had about 200 kids when I first started.
Okay.
215 kids. So it was very.
Joe Watkins' State of Independence is a production of Lighthouse TV, positively different. Made possible in part because of the support of viewers like you.